Welcome to Saturdays in Canada with Blackhawk West here on the Sports Betting Channel. And it doesn't matter whether you're watching on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network or on Belly Up Sports Media or at our sportsbettingweeklylive.com link. The bottom line is you should have more money in your pocket than when you started 2 months ago. That's compliments of Blackhawk West.
That's what we do.
It has been fun. Let me throw these numbers at you. It's $46.90 an hour. It is almost exactly the wage that the UPS driver settled for today. Now, since we are sponsored by ChampionshipFootballs.com, you got to understand how important those UPS drivers are to us. So we definitely want to see them. The fact that during the pandemic they were making 3 shifts and those vans got no air conditioning and they got to pee in a bottle, they're earning that money. All you had to do to earn $46.90 an hour was watch the show.
To spend 30 minutes a week to get the information. And you don't even need to watch the games.
Well, here's the thing. The next thing is you could technically cheat because you know one thing about championship footballs. It's the coolest present they'll open that day guaranteed. So if you skip the spots, you can get it up to $87.43 an hour. And you know what? An $87 an hour gig is not a bad gig. I don't care how many hours a week you get.
Yeah, those are good ratios.
No doubt. So let's do this. When we started the year, we were doing the video clips. And I thought to myself, yeah, you know what? If I spend as much time talking to Wes about the games by putting up the box scores than I do spending cutting and editing out the video clip, it's probably more valuable. So we're going to start with Thursday. It was the Winnipeg game. They did not cover, but my notes are simply Winnipeg have to home. And so that made that pain of that being, because we didn't know when it didn't cover that it was going to be our only game that didn't cover. You never know that to start.
Yeah, and that one, it depends on where you caught it, because it did drop to 14 and 14 and a half. But, I mean, that's just a hard one to watch. Your team wins by 14 and you're a loser. And, I mean, how are you – that's just such a hard one.
However, I pretty much would think that if I went back and I did take a clip of that game, one of us would have said somewhere in there, when there's that big of a line, don't be afraid to go in easy in the beginning and pounce. And at halftime, when it was 6-6, the pouncing was easy.
Yeah, and we did just that. I mean, we found a way to make money even not covering the game total. And this Winnipeg team, Kenny Lawler is back on the field, and that man wasted no time. I mean, some spectacular catches, and this was his first game back. And this is a team that's had a very good wide receiving core, the best quarterback in the CFL, arguably. And now you got what you could call the best wide receiver of the past 5 years in the CFL. And this team, their O-line is not that great, but they are going to be exciting to watch.
No doubt. He jumped off the page in terms of the quality on the field, no doubt about it. Okay, then Friday, of course, Toronto. Now, here's what I got my notes for Toronto. Go back, find the clip for Toronto from like week 5 where I said, I'm not even going to talk about them until they stop covering. I'm just betting them. I'm not going to handicap it. I'm not even putting any time and effort into it. That would be, to me, disrespecting Toronto.
Toronto finds a way. They take the ball away. They're finding balance on offense with a quarterback that's young in his career, and just really balanced team. There's only 3 teams in this league right now that have a positive points to points allowed differential, and it's no surprise that it's Toronto, Winnipeg, and BC, and they're the 3 teams really at the top separating themselves.
Now Saturday, BC did separate themselves. My notes are, wow, that last 3 minutes, it's like everybody on the field knew what the point spread was.
It really is. And they did not have a game plan for their quarterback going down on the first series or the first few minutes of play. but their defense showed up, and their defense has shown up every week. I think their defense is every bit the story as the points they're capable of putting up. Without their quarterback, they hung 19 points. There's teams in the league that are not averaging 19 points, and BC did it without their quarterback. They're only allowing 94 points. That's the total they've allowed. The next best points allowed is 111. So
last week, of course, was a full Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This week we have a little uniqueness because you're going to get a lot of opportunities to catch Saturdays in Canada because you can catch it Thursday when it drops. You can catch it Friday too because the first game isn't until Friday. But this one was Sunday. Here's my comments for this game. Wow. That's the one word, wow.
Yeah, that was such a fun game to watch. All the points that were scored. And then Ottawa, again, with some late heroics, forcing another overtime. Just a lot of points in that second half. Out of two teams that really, Calgary can score points, but Ottawa has not really put up that kind of points. But for 2 weeks in a row, and we said it last week, is this the beginning of Ottawa figuring out how to be a winning team? Or is this... they're just going to come down from the high they had 2 weeks ago beating Winnipeg, but now I think you kind of got to take Ottawa seriously.
Well, that was one of the things that the data told us is that Calgary was giving up points. And, I would say 43 points is a lot of points. I mean, 84 points in some San Diego State Aztec basketball games is a lot of points, But here's the thing.
Jesus, I thank you, Jesus.
3-1 again.
Jesus.
That's really the reason is why, if you look at the hourly rate you get for watching the show, and from the beginning with this show, from the minute we were on the radio, it was as many winners as 1 hour can handle. We are not about content. We're about winners. The content can be great, but if you're giving me one winner for every two losers, I don't want to watch your show. I don't want to listen to your content, But that doesn't count what you did again this week, which was another dog outright winner. I don't really have that stats in front of me. Maybe we'll go back and look it up to be exact. But 19-8 is great, but so many of those 19 were money line dogs getting plus money. Again, do the math. You add plus money to any type of equation, and the numbers are better.
It's been a great run, and I'm watching all these games. I have only missed a couple of them, so we're hitting our stride.
No doubt about it. All right, so let's do this when we get back. First, we're going to hear from PropSwap. We're going to hear from ChampionshipFootballs.com. They are our sponsor, and they are the coolest present. They'll open that day guaranteed, and then we'll get into Week 8. With thousands of buyers across the country, you'll always get the most amount of money for your bet on PropSwap. So hurry to PropSwap while it's early and grab a ticket or two. The odds are always the highest right now. It really does pay to get in early. Go to PropSwap.com or download the free PropSwap app today. PropSwap is where America buys and sells sports bets. You're getting a 100% money-back guarantee on every single souvenir football from ChampionshipFootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. How hard is it to find the right gift for someone that already has everything? Whether that special present is for a Georgia Bulldogs fan or a member of the Kansas City Chiefs kingdom. Maybe your grandfather has been a Dallas Cowboy fan as long as you've been alive. Does your brother-in-law live in Penn State territory? Do you know a member of the University of Baylor Alumni Association? Is there a better birthday gift for someone who's 100% all Tulane Green Wave? Send them the coolest present. They'll open that day, guaranteed. Now, if your favorite pro team is the Jacksonville Jaguars or those Minnesota Vikings, we're sorry about that. If you are a Louisiana Monroe Warhawk or an East Carolina Pirate alumni, not much they can do. After all, the name isn't You Had a Pretty Good Season Footballs.com. The name is ChampionshipFootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. It's Saturdays in Canada with Black Hawk West here on the Sports Betting Channel. And it's funny because I met with some guys last night, and they were talking about, did I have any futures yet for the NFL? Wes, and I got to tell him, you know what, Wes is the the future king, but I'm like the future prince because I'm making money even when my futures lose. But that really is all because PropSwap hopped into our life a few years back. So, and of course, the championshipfootballs.com. Well, you know what? We'll next week we'll have your son on, and he could do a spot with his football. That's what we'll do. So let's look at this. Let's look what I've got going here for this week. Again, there's no game Thursday, so it's Friday, to Saturday, and Sunday. I know a lot of people aren't going to appreciate the sadness I have that my wife is going away this week, and she's leaving for a trip to Palm Springs Saturday morning about 11 o'clock. What time's that first game? Oh, my God, what a great day Saturday's going to be. So let's talk about Friday night. Friday night, Hamilton at Ottawa, 48.5, minus 3.5.
Yeah, so these teams, I mean, Ottawa the last couple of weeks, they've scored points. These teams don't typically score a lot of points, so I mean, I'll just go there. I think that this is too high of a number on the 48.5. My official pick is going to be Hamilton. It opened at 4.5, and I had texted you right when those lines came out. I jumped on it at 4.5. I'm taking the points on Hamilton. I believe that they can show up in this spot. I had a note in front of me. And they just got a beat down from Toronto, and Hamilton has good personnel. Their defense is atrocious in terms of points allowed. Bo Levi Mitchell is day to day. He's supposed to come back in early August. We very well could see him on the sidelines. Now, the Bo Levi Mitchell that we know, at least his last 12 games, at least last calendar year, he got replaced by Jake Mayer. He threw, I think, 2 or 3 interceptions in the opening week before he got injured. But I believe that the way this Hamilton team is playing right now, they very well could be a QB1 away. I don't think Bo Levi is going to light up the sky with his arm, but his leadership is going to bring something to that huddle if he plays or if he's even listed as QB2. So I'm going to take the plus 4.5. Ottawa's had some late game magic. They got to get it under control early in the game if they're gonna beat Hamilton. So I'm taking the points here. It's going to be close. Hamilton's got a shot to win, but we'll take the 4.5.
All right, here's what we got from the Easy Sports data. For the first half, Hamilton is 1-6 against the spread. Now, that goes back to the playoffs last year. And that's the thing. When I start throwing these numbers at us, Wes, we know we're in week 8. So, therefore, anything that's bigger than 8 is a trend that's gone on since last year. And that, of course, whether it's good or bad, is probably more of a team-oriented philosophy from the coach down. I always believe that long-term trends come from the owner's box, and I don't think it's any different in the CFL. They have scored 10 or less in all 7 of those games. For the game, they're allowing 27 plus in 8 of their last 10. That goes back to the regular season last year. In the second half, they've scored 12 plus in 3 of 3. They are 3-0 against the spread. On the road, they have scored 11 plus in 5 of 6. They're 5-1 against the spread. The second half, they are 9-2 against the spread. That goes back to last October. Ottawa, half 1, 4-1 against the spread. Home, though, is only 2-3. They're allowing 13 points or more at home in the first half, the last 6 or 7. Listen to this record for Ottawa. Now, remember, you just said you're betting against Ottawa. At home, they're 2-0 right now. In the last 2, they've got a 2-0 run. Before that, they were 0-10 against the spread. And actually, before that, since the beginning of us tracking Easy Sports data, they are 2-15 against the spread at home. So I like that play. And then we've got Saturday. This is the game 1. This is the game that I'll be really sad because my wealth would be gone, and I won't have to have changing the channel commercials and come back and have to put the game back on. It is Sask at Toronto, 47.5, minus 10.5, a big double-digit number for the Argos.
It's a big number, but until they stop covering, we're not going to stop betting them. I'm gonna lay the 10.5. We're gonna tiptoe into it. We're gonna look for more opportunity within the game in case the 10.5 isn't happening. But the way that these Toronto games have gone is we've seen them jump on top towards the end of the first half and take a commanding lead. We've also seen them kind of toy with a team in the first quarter, but for the most part, there's always they always get an interception. We saw them intercept the ball from Vernon Adams 6 times in a game. So they're taking the ball away. Their offensive line is absolutely incredible. I think it's the best in the CFL. So 10.5 points against Sask, who's really struggled to score points, and they have a negative point differential. And it's about 22 points that separate their points allowed from their points scored. So you can't allow points against Toronto because they're going to let you move down the field, but they're probably going to take the ball away from you, or they're going to hold you to a field goal. You're not getting a lot of majors on Toronto.
So here's what we've got with Sask from the Easy Sports Data. In the first half, they have scored 19 points in their last 4. In 7 of their last 8 for the first half, they have scored 10 or less. On the road, they are under. 5 out of the last 6 have gone under. In the second half, they've allowed 12 plus and 4 or 5. On the road, they have scored 10 or less in 7 of 8. Against in the game, they're on a 1-4 run, and they're also on a 2-10 run. And on the road, they're 2-5 against the spread, and the unders are 5 out of 6 during that period. And my notes for Toronto simply says, "Thank you, Argos." That's it.
Yeah. And
no handicapping notes to be said. When we get back,
Toronto at home is stellar.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Again, I don't even look at it's all W's. I don't look at it anymore. I don't waste my time. It is like having 12.5% of my handicapping back because there's 8 games and I get one of the teams I don't have to play. Don't get me wrong. Eventually, Winnipeg's going to come on the radar, and then we'll talk a little bit. So when we get back, we are going to see about this trap games because we're at that point of the year where, without a doubt, we're going to be able to use this. I love this clip, but early in the season,
I always think everything could be a trap, which is why I'm still alive.
you really can't use it. We'll be right back. Your Kansas City Chiefs are Super Bowl champions. Here's the coolest present any Chiefs fan will open that day guaranteed. These full-size, NFL licensed, full-color souvenir footballs celebrate all 3 of Kansas City's Super Bowl titles. The top panel of these limited edition footballs has logos and scores from the first 2 championships with all the game information from the Super Bowl 57 win. The second side has the score from every regular season and playoff game. These footballs make an incredible gift for your favorite Kansas City Chiefs fan, even if it's you. ChampionshipFootballs.com, the coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. Your Tulane Green Wave are Cotton Bowl champions. Here's the coolest present any Tulane football fan will open that day, guaranteed. These full-size NCAA licensed full-color souvenir footballs celebrate the historic season that included the largest one-year turnaround in history and a victory in the first Green Wave New Year's Six Bowl since 1940. The top panel of these limited edition footballs has all the Cotton Bowl game victory information. The second side has the score from every regular season game of the 12-2 season, along with their first ever AAC title. These footballs make an incredible gift for your favorite Tulane Green Wave fan, even if it's you. ChampionshipFootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. Welcome back to Saturdays in Canada on the Sports Betting Channel with Blackhawk Wes. I am second half Chaz now. Wes, what are the biggest trapped in the CFL? Because if you look at college football, it's a little different than the NFL, right? And that's going to be a little different than the CFL. So give us a couple, 2, 3 of the trap scenarios that you've seen in your career covering Canadian football.
Well, I think we have one in front of us this week, but the ones in the past that I always look for if I'm looking to bet on or against a team is big win on the road, going home against a team with a bye. I mean, that's you kind of look at that, and I call that a trap because the big win on the road, like you would think that gives them momentum going into the following week, and I run the other direction on that one. I think this week looking at Ottawa is a little bit trappy, but we had already talked about that. But when you're looking at this week, I think I know where your mind is going. We're looking at BC playing Edmonton, who allows 100 points a game. They elk at every opportunity. They're at home, and BC whether or not their quarterback is going to be in the starting lineup. We know their defense is going to be there, but BC is on the road 2 weeks in a row, and they're going to Winnipeg next week. In college football, I mean, that's kind of where you look at the traps. Low-ranked team getting ready for the big game next week, and I think that it's jumping off the page. BC playing Edmonton at Edmonton, big
It's
spread.
43, right? Minus 8 for BC, so the home team's getting 8.
Yep. And then they go to Winnipeg next week, and they're going to find a well-rested Bomber team that lost.
Coming off a bye.
And again, BC beat them the first go around. So, next week that's the round 2 of the game of the year. But we are looking at a potential trap game.
All right, so let's look at this from the Easy Sports data. This is Saturday again, 4 o'clock my time. Think about it. I got a 1 o'clock game, a 4 o'clock game, and the girl that I fell in love with the first moment I saw her, couldn't even talk. She's going to be gone for the weekend. Life is pretty good in the second half Jazz household. All right, so BC half won last week versus Sass. They only scored 7 points. But before that, in 4 or 5, they had gone 13 plus for the first half. In the second half, they're on a 7-1 against the spread run, and they've scored 10 or more in all of them. Toronto scored 20 on them in the second half when they played Toronto. The other 5 games, they've given up 24. Toronto scored 45 on them when they beat them. The 5 other games, they gave up 49. Like you said, that defense is there. So Edmonton in the first half has scored 10 or less, 5 of 6. The unders are 1-6 this season. Since we started the Easy Sports data, in the second half at home, they are 4-16-1 against the spread, but they're currently on an 0-11-1 run. And part of what you don't get credit for when we give you your hourly rate for watching this show is all that second half activity. It was 3-1 again last week, I think. But for the last 12 home games, they have allowed 24 or more in 11 of 12. And if that isn't Elkin, and you know what? The BC quarterback's got a whole other week, right, to get better.
Yeah, and so my apologies to our friends north of the border that are actually in Canada and have access to better information than we do. But looking at this game, what number do you have? Because I'm seeing 8.
Yes, 43 and 8.
Yeah. So I believe that it is not officially official, the starting quarterback of this game. So I believe that this 8 points is reflective of not knowing who their starting quarterback is going to be. That being said, I don't believe their backup is in bad shape at all. And again, an extra week to prepare. It is the lowest total of the weekend. Yeah, and I believe it was Dane Evans that came into the game, and he that's a former Grey Cup quarterback.
I knew the name. I don't know a lot of personnel from 3 or 4 years ago, but I knew that name.
So now you're looking at last week we were comfortable laying 15.5 points. Part of it was because we know what Winnipeg could do, but the other part of it, probably more so than what Winnipeg could do, because Winnipeg has taken us for quite the ride this year and given us some confusion. But part of the reason we were okay to lay those points was because it was Edmonton. So now we're looking at a team that statistically is better, that beat Winnipeg, has a way better defense, doesn't allow points, found a way to hang 19 points. They have a former Grey Cup quarterback on their roster, and we only have to lay 8 points. We have to lay half of what we were comfortable last week. You could call it one part Elking, one part BC's great defense, but I feel like this is a discount because if VA sees any form of game time, and if he was starting, we'd probably be looking at a spread in the teens. So I think BC's still going to beat them. Dane Evans has had a whole week to work with the ones. They still have everything that they need to beat Edmonton.
Did I mention they're currently on 0-11-1 run at home? When we get back, we're going to get the Sunday's game. My wife's not back till Monday. I'm telling you, this is the weekend for Canadian football here on Saturdays in Canada with Black Hawk West. We will be right back.
Hey, it's Leaf.
Hello, and we're here to tell you about our Wake and Bake Twitter contest. You don't even need to be a great handicapper to win.
This one is so easy, even I can win.
That's right, Leaf. anybody can win. All you have to do is...
Can I do the disclaimer?
Leaf, the disclaimer is at the end.
Sorry.
All you have to do is take a screenshot of any game that you're watching where the clock has stopped at exactly 4:20.
420. I love that number.
We know you do, Leaf. Now please let me finish.
Sorry.
If the clock stops at 4:20 during any game you're watching, take a screenshot showing the clock and tag Chaz on Twitter with a picture.
Go to @secondhalfchaz, add the picture, and you're in.
You'll be entered in a drawing for a $100 gift certificate at championshipfootballs.com.
In a world where most cannabis gummies are hashy, melty, or just plain gross, one brand will rise up to forever change what an edible can be. Vegan and gluten-free ingredients, 30-plus terpenes, and a melt-proof recipe star in Wana. Not all edibles are created equal. Now in theaters. Dispensaries.
Welcome back to Saturdays in Canada. And the best part about the show is we start our week premiering on Belly Up Sports, 8 o'clock Pacific time, Thursday morning, which by the time we get about right now,
420. I love that number.
that's it, 8:20 San Diego time, 4:20 London time. And I do really miss Wake and Bake, don't get me wrong, but I have never, ever gone to my dispensary and I have left with more money than I went with. That has never happened. But it happens almost every single week on Saturdays in Canada. So, Wake and Bake for right now is going to have to wait and bake. So let's get to Sunday's game. It is Cal at Montreal, 47.5, -2.5. Montreal's coming off a bye, correct?
Montreal's coming off a bye.
What do you think?
Well, this one, we're celebrating the kid's 1-year birthday, and as we're looking at times, we're doing it from 12 to 3, and we're tacos and margs and everybody in the backyard kind of thing. And this game we will be done with party time in time to get for the adults to get in front of this TV to watch this game. I'm looking forward to it. I love watching Cody Fajardo play. Montreal, believe it or not, is a top 3 defense as far as points allowed. They're not scoring a lot of points, but they're right there with BC and Toronto. They actually have the same points allowed as Toronto. As we talk about Toronto and their balance, Calgary is allowing a ton of points. So a team coming off a bye, only having to lay 2.5 at home. That just feels like the safer number. If we weren't even talking about the teams, a team coming off a bye with the better defense, going against a team that easily allows points, it just feels like a better move. But then when you start to sprinkle in, Mac and Fajardo and Calgary being, well, they're very predictable to us, but they're unpredictable as to when they decide to show up and play. They just scored a lot of points, really devastating loss to Ottawa in overtime. They shouldn't have lost that game. And so I think that's going to carry over into this game. And 2.5, it feels like a pretty safe number to lay for Montreal.
Yeah, if you watch that game on your week off, you saw what you need to do to move the ball in Calgary.
And Calgary is a top 3 as far as sacks. They will sack you, but Montreal has got a really good D line, and their O line is pretty good too. I don't think Calgary is going to find the same sacking success against Montreal, and they're coming off a bye.
All right, so let's look at what the Easy Sports data says about Calgary. In the first half, they have allowed double digits in 6 of 7. On the road, they're scoring double digits in 11 out of 12. In the second half, they're on an 0-4 against the spread run, and they have allowed 13-plus in all 4 of those. For the second half, they've allowed 11-plus in 7 of 8. In the second half, they're scoring double digits, 17 of the last 18. It's a long streak, but they're still 1-6 in their last 7 against the spread. For the game, they've allowed 24-plus in 4 of 4, and on the road for the game, they are 16-5 against the spread since we started the data. And you know what? That's a long time. 21 games. It's not that bad of a number for sure. Montreal at home. In the first half, it's gone under 6 out of the 7, but they've allowed 10 or less in 8 straight games. In the second half, they've allowed more points in 4 straight games. For the game, they're currently on an 0-3 against the spread run, but their last 2 were BC and Toronto. And so, those are 2 teams that we've talked about as the top 3. Home games over the last week versus Toronto. Before that, they went over last week versus Toronto. Before that, 7 of 7 were under. They've allowed 24 or less in all 7. So if Calgary's giving up points and Montreal's not allowing points, that 2.5 is not a crazy number. But you know what I noticed as you were talking, Wes? It was the first time I really realized that, yes, 2.5 in the NFL, 2.5 in NCAA football is not 2.5 in Canadian football.
It's not 2.5 in Canadian football. And, while you were talking, I'm looking at some statistics and, Montreal's points per game, you almost got to chalk it up to their strength of schedule. They played Winnipeg, BC, and they played Toronto, and they actually hung, I think it was 27 points on Toronto. So this is not a bad Montreal team. And then when you look at Calgary, some teams that don't score points have scored a lot on them. Sask has scored points on them. Ottawa just hung 40 on them. So,
29, 24, 31, and 43. If you are a defensive coordinator and those are your numbers, you're looking to see if the general manager is doing any interviewing when you're out in the field. Is what you're looking at.
Yeah, you sure are.
All right, so anything you want to add before I say what I have said every single week, except the week there was only 3 games? Is this the week that I cashed my 4-teamer? Now, don't get me wrong. I have cashed a 4-teamer and a 5-teamer with this stuff, but I'm talking about where we sweep the board, we go 4-0, and because 4-0 changes your weekend when you isolate those 4 games on one ticket. The bottom line is 10x, 12x, whatever it is. There's just not a lot of them out there.
And it's every week the one we lose is a head scratcher. I'm not downplaying the 3-1 average weeks. We're right at 71%, but I could just taste the 4-0. I mean, the way that we went 3-1 this past week, we won by 14 and didn't cash on the favorite. Then we had a starting quarterback go down, one of the top in the league, probably a MOP candidate, and they still cashed the 9.5 spread. We had a dog outright, take it into overtime, and it's like the one game, and every week it feels like there's one like that. So we're sniffing it.
No doubt. But again, they call it gambling for a reason, don't they?
Yeah. Yep, they do.
All right, we will catch you next time here on Saturdays in Canada with Blackhawk West on the Sports Betting Channel, sponsored by ChampionshipFootballs.com. You can catch the premiere. If you're catching it now, it's on Belly Up Sports, 8 o'clock Thursday, 4 o'clock Thursday on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. After that, it'll always be available at SportsBettingWeeklyLive.com. Again, the numbers. If you watch the entire show, you're making $46.90 an hour. If you skip the commercials, which are Championship Football is the coolest present you'll open that day, guaranteed, you can get it up to $87.43 an hour. Always be cashing.
Always be cashing.